Welcome to Living With. I'm Claire, and it's my absolute pleasure to introduce you to Laura today. Thank you for joining us in on this conversation. So, here's a little bit about Laura before we dig into our chat. Laura is a college student living with idiopathic hypersomnia. She is currently dealing with the challenges of debilitating daily symptoms, as well as finding the right treatment that works for her, all while being a full-time student. She's had symptoms for as long as she can remember, yet getting a diagnosis was a very long process. Laura hopes in the future people will not have to wait as long as she did to receive their diagnosis as well. All right, Laura, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I know we've met prior, and I was so inspired by your journey and your story, and really excited for you to share your lived experience, your living experience with living with idiopathic hypersomnia with our community. So welcome to the Living With series. Thank you for joining us. And if it's okay, we would jump into some questions about you and your life.
Yeah, awesome.
All right. So why don't we just start with, I always like to start with where you are, what you're doing, and then we'll kind of dig into the IH piece.
Yeah, so my name is Laura. I am 21 years old. I am from the suburbs of Chicagoland, and I am currently a senior at the University of Iowa.
Great. What are you studying?
So I am studying to go to PA school. That is the dream, specifically health studies.
That's awesome. So I know when we met, you had such an interesting journey as a person living with IH. Can you back up a little bit and tell us, when you first started to experience some symptoms that you felt were not like quote unquote normal?
Yeah, so pretty much as early as I can remember, unfortunately, probably like middle school age, I was just always tired. I couldn't handle activities like the other students could. I didn't feel like I fit in because I was so tired all the time. But I thought it was just a normal part of growing up. That's pretty much what I heard all the time from pediatricians. You're growing up, your body's growing. And that kind of just carried on into high school. But I started to notice, I'm taking a lot of naps. I'm falling asleep while doing my homework. Like I knew I was never at my full potential just because I was always so tired. But, being a teenage girl tired in high school is like not the furthest thing from what's considered normal, unfortunately. So, again, the symptoms were kind of just dismissed. And I went to college. That is kind of when everything accelerated. And I realized that I am not as high functioning as my peers, and I need to be in order to do well. And in class, the brain fog was crazy, and I would look around, everyone is focused. Um, I knew I needed to do better, but I genuinely could not. I couldn't go to the gym. Like, all I could handle was going to class, coming back, taking a nap, and studying, probably falling asleep while studying. And everyone around me could, pull all-nighters to study, get done what they need to get done while having a social life and, being physically active. And I could not do that. And for the longest time, I thought that was normal.
It's interesting that you're able to identify brain fog. Maybe we can unpack that a little bit. But what was it? Because of course this was sort of quote unquote normal for you from what you're saying from the earliest of ages, and then that like kind of maybe comparing yourselves to peers, during college and not able to do the all-nighters and the extracurricular things that you love. What was it that made you seek medical evaluation?
Yeah, so in high school, I had different doctors, and I was kind of stuck in my like suburban area here at home. So I kind of felt like the doctors there aren't listening to me. They don't think anything is wrong. And I mean, I started to believe that myself. But once I went away to college, I was really on my own. And there's a great healthcare system at my school. And so I finally was like, listen, I started working in the hospital. Like, I think someone would really listen to me here. It seems like they know their stuff,
Mm.
and I need to, like, just fend for myself. So my doctor in Iowa City, she was fantastic. She was like, "It sounds like there's something more going on here. Have you ever had a sleep study?" And I was like, "No, I have not. Isn't that what people get for when they have, like, sleep apnea?" And it was the first time I
Mhm.
was asked any questions about a sleep disorder, which is crazy. Like, I was never even asked if I randomly fall asleep, um, until when I got to college, which was very surprising because I feel like they should have been asking me sleep disorder questions way earlier on, and I know it's
Right.
hard. But I, like, finally had someone who listened to me, and that's why I was, like, finally relieved, but it still took a really long time to get the diagnosis after that. It still took probably, like, 2 years, which is really it sucks. That's 2 years of my college career that I'm never going to get back, all those,
Mhm.
like, mediocre grades that I could have excelled in, if I just got help sooner.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah.
What did it look like when you kind of leading up, you had a sleep study and then you secured presumably a diagnosis of IH?
So, yes, I unfortunately had to get two-part sleep studies done, and I guess for insurance reasons, you can only do them once a year. So, I had my first sleep study done in 2023, like around Thanksgiving break, and I was so excited because I was like, finally, I'm gonna know what's going on. I know this isn't normal, and this is gonna show it's not normal. And the sleep study staff people were even like, "Oh yeah, if there's something there, we'll pick this up." And of course it did not. I was a little nervous because I did the overnight and then the MSLT or the MLST, sorry. Um, and I um I was just nervous. I couldn't fall asleep for all of the naps. I also overslept during the overnight study. They said they wish they woke me up earlier. That way it could have been like a normal day for me because I can't sleep like 11 or 12 hours every single night. And so they were like,
Mm.
okay, we'll come back in a year. In the meantime, I just tried like a wakefulness medication that only helped for a few months, but they were kind of like, you don't have a diagnosis, so we're out of options until you do get a diagnosis. So I went a whole year
Yeah.
waiting, which sucked. But
Right.
I finally got my second sleep study done after a long wait. And that second sleep study was positive for idiopathic hypersomnia, slept for all the naps,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Yes, this is not normal, but you didn't go into REM. There aren't the signs for narcolepsy, so like we're diagnosing
Mhm.
you with idiopathic hypersomnia." And still from there, the treatment has been
Okay.
like kind of a shot in the dark. It's been a very, very long journey from, like, a doctor finally listening to me, to me finally finding a treatment that works for me, which I'm still trying to find today.
Did you have any misdiagnoses along the way? Well, I mean, that's an extraordinary wait and a real frustration with the system about only being allowed one sleep study a year. What happened was there anything that happened diagnostically in the meantime?
Yeah, so in high school, like a lot of teenagers, I definitely had a rough patch. And, I was sleeping all the time. My body could not handle sitting in a classroom for so long, waking up very early,
Mhm.
and then coming home, eating dinner, and then having to study. So, I, kind
Mm.
of voiced concerns to, doctors, counselors. But, I was a teenage girl in high school, so they were like, "You're sleeping all the time," and I didn't feel like it was good enough because I couldn't come to my full potential. And I knew it was because like I'm always sleeping. Like I can't do everything in one day, and I'm frustrated about it. So I was incorrectly
Mm-hmm.
diagnosed with major depressive disorder, which it was an incorrect diagnosis for me, and it made me kind of give up on, looking for the right answers. I knew that depression, especially major depressive disorder, didn't really suit me. Everything stemmed from the fact
Mm-hmm.
that I was always tired and needed to sleep for many, many hours of the day, fall asleep while studying, and then fail an exam the next day. It was all related to sleep. And I obsessed over it.
Mm-hmm.
And probably did, mess with my mental health, and that's a whole other problem. But I think if I didn't receive that incorrect diagnosis, I probably would have like found a sleep specialist sooner. But it's a really big problem for teenage girls, especially where you're depressed, you're spending a lot of time in bed. So you clearly just have depression, that is it. But I'm happy I didn't just give up there. But I feel really awful for a lot of the other teenage girls who this has happened to, because there are definitely a lot out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing that your sort of insight and tenacity and maybe your experience at college, because as you say, you're like on a kind of pre-med PA track. How much did that inform your own kind of personal journey, Laura?
Yeah, so it's definitely hard when you work in a hospital and everyone around you is used to working 12-hour shifts. And like expressing that you have a sleep disorder is kind of a scary thing because like I don't want people to think I'm incompetent, but, I know my limits and,
Mm-hmm.
like, I know what I can and cannot do. I'm not going to work a 12-hour shift if I had class, late last night, the night before, stuff like that, but it has been a really difficult journey navigating college, especially like the vigorousness of like being like pre-PA, pre-med, anything in health sciences. It's like for every, 1 hour of class, you need to spend 3 hours studying, and it's really hard to keep up, really hard to just study. And my grades have definitely suffered because of it. And I had an undiagnosed sleep disorder, so it makes sense, but I can't go
Mm-hmm.
back and redo it. I wish I could, but because it took so long to get diagnosed and find treatment, um, I have unfortunately
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like fallen into these ways of like, okay, well, I can do okay on certain days and not okay on other days.
Right. So kind of tracking with your academic journey, where were your family with all of this? Because obviously they've seen you sleepy forever, and now you've got this, new trajectory, securing a diagnosis. What was that like in terms of your family environment and dynamic?
Yeah, my family has been extremely supportive throughout the entire journey, which I am incredibly thankful for because I'm sure, they were like, "This is kinda questionable, like, what's going on here?" I didn't have a diagnosis, but I was in bed all the time. I was sleeping all the time, talking about sleeping, complaining I'm tired, and they worried about me, and, like, that was they would never get angry with me, which I am extremely, extremely grateful for because, like, they could have easily been like, "You're the laziest daughter, like, I think anybody ever has." But, if it wasn't for their support, I probably wouldn't have continued to find the answers that I needed. And I am like, they easily, easily could have just made it into a bigger problem, being like, she has major depressive disorder, and instead they were like, "No, we
Mm.
believe you. Like, we think that you need to go and like fight for your health here." And they taught me a huge lesson just in life by doing that. And I am very happy that they did.
Yeah, that's huge. So you've secured a diagnosis, you're still in school, you've hung in there remarkably. What was the next steps after you got a diagnosis? What kind of treatment, Laura, did you kind of embark on?
So, I was really happy the day I got a diagnosis. I remember I was in the car with my mom when I got an email saying that my sleep study results came back. Um, and I checked the email. I was so happy. My eyes filled with tears. I was like, this is where like my new life begins. Now I get help, right? No, it
Yeah.
was not that easy
Mm-hmm.
at all. I remember my first doctor's appointment, she was kind of like, okay, we have a few more treatment options. And it was like stimulant after stimulant. It really is a shot in the dark with the treatment journey here. And I was so shocked because like I don't know anybody who has had, issues where their treatment journey is really just a guessing game, and they're also highly controlled. So they were very difficult to get, which makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But, I found myself calling a bunch of different pharmacies in like rural Iowa, begging them, do you have this stimulant? Which was a crazy thing I never thought I would have to do. And it would be just like disappointment after disappointment when, the next thing wouldn't work when I tried so hard to get it. And there are a lot of hoops you have to jump through before you can get to the only FDA-approved treatment, and, I found myself having to jump through all of
Mm-hmm.
those hoops and getting prescribed the only FDA-approved treatment, is it's a very scary thing because it's so extreme, and my parents, like, worry about me taking it. It is terrifying, for lack of a better term. But it's the only option that there is out there. And even once you start taking it, it can take a long, long time. And there is a high potential for abuse with it. So, you have people like checking in on you. But, I worry about the people who might not have, a great support system. They might not have the self control where they can be like, okay, I have this like dangerous substance in front of me. I am only going to take it as directed. And it's a scary thing. I have never experienced anything like this. And it's a problem. And like any, narcolepsy, I feel like is so different. There's so much research out there. There are so many different treatment options. And for this, it is crazy how like the only option is like the way extreme. It's terrifying.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point, and it is much more sort of commonly used at this point in narcolepsy. But with that, I think any kind of like safety concerns maybe offset and managed really well. There's like lots of, certainly in our household, we have lots of kind of procedures in place that make it particularly safe. And I think to your point, maybe you're referring also to being in college. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, they told me like right off the bat because like I'm at home and I'm away at school. And once they heard that, they were like, "Do you live on a college campus? Like we cannot send you
Mm-hmm.
this drug if you live on a college
Mm-hmm.
campus," which 100% makes sense. And I am like barely off campus, but I am in an apartment building, so they can't like, leave it at the doorstop, which would be terrifying if they could. But I am gonna have to figure out like how to go pick it up, because I do not want that left somewhere where someone can grab it. I would probably be very devastated. It is another thing to worry about.
But you're responding well to oxybate therapy. Is that right?
I am still in the early stages of taking it. I have noticed some differences, but I also know that like, you have to titrate up, and I actually titrate up tonight, so I'm excited. But I am excited that it's something different. It is, a completely different ball game, but I think I needed a completely different ball game. It was kind of just
Mm-hmm.
like all these
Hmm.
different ADHD medications. I don't have ADHD. I don't think those are ever going to work for me. So I am excited to have something new. Unfortunately, it took a very long time to get. I was prescribed it in like early December, and I didn't get it till early January, just because of like the long process. And luckily, I was like over
Hmm.
winter break for most of it, but it was also the tail end of final exams. So I had like no medications to get through finals, and I was like, I felt probably the worst I have ever felt, just because like I was no longer on any stimulants at all. And it was just like studying and studying and studying. So, yeah, it's been a journey.
That's incredible. So, with all your challenges, health, sleep, accessing medication, how do you need any accommodations to study, Laura? Because I think someone could look at you and say, well, she's really successful, she's in college and she's doing this really vigorous course. Do you need any accommodations at all?
Yes, I do. And my university is really great at providing them. I really couldn't get much of any accommodations before I was diagnosed, because it's kind of hard to go up to your professors and say, hey, I don't have a diagnosis in anything. They think something's going on. However, I have to wait until I get a test result in a year. Can you cut me some slack? Not really going over well,
Mm.
but now, I have answers, and I like am like registered through the university and everything. And professors in general, it probably helps that I'm going into the medical field, because like these professors, they know medicine.
Hmm.
They know that like you have a neurological disorder, like you're not lazy. Like,
Hmm.
we let me know like if I can help you in any way, and it's pretty much been just that, like open communication. They appreciate so much. Like if I tell them, hey, this week has been really rough, like I might need an extension on an assignment. Otherwise, like if I cram and I get it done now, it's not going to be good because I'm extremely tired. I have brain fog. I feel like I'm going to fall asleep on my
Hmm.
keyboard. They have just been really, really understanding, and I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah, is it you? I think you sort of hold quite an interesting position, really, as a student and someone with IH and a student in like the pre-med program. Have you got any thoughts about how knowledgeable your peers and colleagues? Sounds like you're speaking quite well of professors, but what do you think about how IH is kind of understood within the well, like especially medical students?
Yeah. Also, like, first of all, my doctor there at the university, I love her. She is great. I asked her, have you ever had any other students with idiopathic hypersomnia? And she's been there for a pretty darn long time. And she said, I think I've maybe had one other student. So I think that it's hard to even just have a primary care physician in general, because it's something that, like, IH isn't, commonly known for them. They don't see it every day. And some sleep specialists don't even see it every day because it's not a common thing.
When we were chatting the other day, I think you were talking about how it's sort of not a priority in medical school to study, and that's a problem, right? Kind of
Yeah.
from the ground upwards.
Yeah, it's definitely a part of the culture, when you're studying anything difficult, especially medicine, to, pull all-nighters to study for your exams the next day, study your tail off. So it's really hard when you cannot do that, but you have the drive to do it, because I'll be laying in bed
Mm.
extremely tired, ready to fall asleep. In my brain, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I need to study, because everyone else is, and I need to be almost better than everyone else. Um, and like at work, I have like my coworkers who are pretty much like, Oh, yeah, I'm working an 8-hour shift tonight. I'm gonna stay up till 1 a.m. studying and take my exam tomorrow. And, I mean, that's not healthy even for the
Mm.
average person. But it's a part of the culture.
Mhm.
That's just kind of what you need to do well. And, I'm trying to get there as best as I can. But I also feel like my dreams of going to PA school are probably going to be delayed until I find like the right level of treatment that works for me. So it's kind of like I'm watching everyone in slow motion and I am behind and they're all going off to PA school, med school, and I am probably gonna have to put it on hold for now until I can figure out
Okay.
like when I am at my best. And I am excited for
Mhm.
that point, but also very anxious to get to that point. I feel like there is, you know, at like in the hospital in general, nobody knows what idiopathic hypersomnia is. If you mention the drug GHB for like treating it, they know what that is, which I didn't even know what that is. But it's sad because it's like when you start to describe it, it's like I'm always tired, is usually like the first thing that comes out of my mouth, but it almost is always followed by, I'm always tired. I wish I could take a nap all day. Like I would love to sleep all day and I, like I wish I
Yeah,
didn't have
lucky
to,
you. Yeah.
but that's how I feel, and it's hard because it's like, "No, I promise, it's a neurological disorder."
Yeah, that's so difficult to navigate and to do it well, like graciously, when you respond to people. We've heard that, wish I could nap, wish I would. And you're like, no. And I think that just speaks to people meaning well, actually, but also a profound lack of understanding that your naps are not, negotiable, they're not optional. It's an entirely different lifestyle, and to be able to pull off college courses or hold down a job and relationships and so on and so forth is just incredibly challenging when you never feel refreshed and you never feel completely awake. And so kudos to you, Laura, for doing so well in college. And I think, to your point about oxybate therapy, it is a good medication for good reason. It's slightly complex, particularly on campus, but I'm hopeful for you. I know you're just titrating up right now, and as a mum of a daughter that titrated up at the age of 4 and is now 18, I think I can kind of testify that it's really worth the kind of like attention and dedication to kind of pursue and not like jump just because it's slightly complicated. And as you say, it's the kind of the best option that there is at this point. So good for you. So let's talk about support. So great that your family is on board. I think that's super significant. Where else have you found support? Maybe in the broader community. What works for you? Any insights you'd love to share for our audience to kind of tap into?
Yeah, I mean, talking to physicians, like sleep specialists, is very, very helpful, but they also like don't have the like firsthand experience. So when you're trying a bunch of different treatments and it seems like they're guessing, like part of the whole guessing game with the treatments, it is really helpful to go online. And I think the first thing I found was like the Idiopathic Hypersomnia Reddit group, just people sharing their stories. They have no reason to lie. Um, and it's just like
Right.
if you have a question, they'll answer it. Sharing like your journey is very helpful to other people. And, there's so many people who have questions. Like, I see questions of people who are like in the beginning of their journey, like, I have my sleep study tomorrow. Like, what do I do? And I just kind of think back to when I was there. And it's like, it's great that there's, like support groups out there as well. It's just extremely helpful to talk to other people about this because I don't know what I would do before the internet. I'd probably freak out a little bit, to be honest. And there's also like not a lot of research. Um, it's difficult, but I'm really grateful for people who, are willing to share their stories, and that's kind of why I want to share my story, because like, this is a sleep disorder that's not as known, and I wish I could help the next person, get diagnosed sooner so they don't have to go through the long experience I had to go through. But, just like people sharing their stories has been extremely helpful for me. I feel like, not so much of a guessing game. Like there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I think it sort of sounds really simple to sort of share your story, but it is really profound. And yeah, Reddit. I mean, I'm not. I'm on the I'm the generation that didn't have the internet when it was so bad. Back in the day. Well, maybe the internet was sort of emerging when Matilda was kind of symptomatic, but it certainly didn't have the wealth of information. So that's a huge resource, isn't it? And I'm glad Reddit's a good forum. I've heard that. So what does a typical day look like for you now, Laura?
Yeah, so
With medication, you're a couple of years into a diagnosis, you're obviously smart and figuring out kind of college with a view to having a career. What does a typical day look like for you?
yeah, so again, yeah, it's hard because I'm like in the middle of navigating treatment. But I would say a typical day for me is I sleep in as much as possible to the very, very last second. I'm greedy with my snooze button. I wake up, I go to class. I almost always have coffee or an energy drink with me, bright and early, and I usually still have problems waking up, and feeling awake during my classes, a lot of brain fog. The professor will say something and I'll be like, what did they just say? As I'm trying to write it down. Right after class, I usually take a nap, sleep as much as I possibly can. Sometimes I have to go to work, which is really difficult while also being a student. I love my job. I love what I do. I usually need more caffeine to get me through my job because I have to be awake. I have to be alert. And if I'm not, I'm honest. Like I don't go into work if I know I can't really function, and that sucks because then, I fall back into that hole of like, I am not good enough. I am not like other people. I'm not able to function when I should be able to. So I usually get back from work. I am super tired. It is hard to find time to take care of myself. And, luckily I have people in my life who, make sure I do take care of myself. My parents call me pretty much every night. It is adorable. But, I study and study and study until I really know that I'm no longer retaining information, which unfortunately comes up sooner than it should. I am very big with mental breaks and kind of just like getting up and being like, I need to be awake right now. I need to be alert right now and focus. And then I like, even if I took late naps, even if I had a coffee at 10 p.m., I will be out like that. Like, I will sleep for the night and do it all over again. But I am very excited for this upcoming semester, because like I have new help. I have the best treatment option there is out there, the only treatment option there is out there. But it's kind of like a fresh start, new beginning. Unfortunately, it's late in my college career, but better late than never.
Right.
So I'm very excited.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, because I think you sharing and shedding light on this particular sort of stage of life is really, hopefully insightful for others that might be a couple of years behind you, curious as to whether they've got a sleep disorder, struggling with school and work and all the imbalance that means with having a sleep disorder and being so incredibly sleepy all the time. Thank you, Laura. I think sharing your story is so powerful and is going to be so helpful for everyone. So good luck with this next semester and you titrating up on oxybate therapy and navigating all that. I think that's just going to be super positive and helpful for you. And of course, as a community, we're really excited for new medications as well in the pipeline. So this is not the end of the story or the conversation. So maybe we'll circle back in a year or so and check in with you, see how you're getting on. But thank you for what you're doing to advocate for people in your position in the medical field, which sounds ridiculous that you should do that, but it's not the first time we've heard having to kind of work from the ground up. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, of course. I am like more than happy to share anything. Let me know if you need anything else. I am always willing to, I can't really give my money. I don't have money, but I can give you my time. So yeah, thank you for
time is that's so sweet. That's so sweet. Actually, time is the biggest gift, honestly. And sharing on social media and just like spreading the word to raise awareness. Of course, as an organization, as a 501c3, we welcome donors and everything, but time and experience and expertise and being willing and vulnerable to share is actually the biggest gift. Thank you, Laura, that you've given both the Hypersomnia Foundation and our community. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you for what you guys do.